Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the professional learning session on inclusive education. Today, I will be taking you through some fundamental inclusive practices and theories and how they can be implemented in a classroom. Let's start by asking the question, what is inclusive education? According to UNESCO, inclusive education is a process of addressing and responding to the diversity of needs of all learners through increasing participation in learning cultures and communities, and reducing exclusion from education and from within education. Bear in mind that inclusive education is a process, not a state. It is constantly evolving, given the diversity of students' needs and teachers' understanding of inclusive practice. This definition also highlighted the role of cultures and communities in promoting inclusive education and the various strategies that teacher can use to capitalize on diversity in those areas. Now, I would like you to think about some challenges or barriers that might prevent the students from participating in learning both within and outside school. I hope you can come away from today's presentation with some ideas on what you can do or resources available to help you in supporting needs of the students. There is a multitude of legal framework and guidelines that ensure all young children can participate, achieve, and grow in Australia. For example, the Disability Standards for Education were developed under the Disability Discrimination Act 1992. The standards clarify the obligations of education and training providers and seek to ensure that students with disability can access and participate in education on the same basis as students without disability. The Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action represents a worldwide consensus on direction for special needs education. Melbourne Declaration and the Alice Springs Declaration set out visions for excellence and equity for education in Australia. They represent the concerted effort of government and the education community to provide all young Australians with access to high-quality education that is inclusive and free from any form of discrimination. The Australian curriculum identifies three major categories of diverse students groups: students for whom English as an additional language or dialect, students who are gifted and talented, and students with disability. As you may know, diversity in our primary school is much more complex. For example, we have students from refugee and migrant backgrounds whose home culture is different from culture they experience after arriving in Australia. Most of them also learn and speak English as an additional language. Students' social and emotional needs may also vary as a result of their experience in and outside school. For example, some students have had experience with adverse situations such as poverty, natural disasters, bullying, and child abuse. So how can we work towards meeting the diverse needs of all students? At Smart Primary, we have put in place 5 types of support and adjustments to ensure all children are enabled to achieve their full potential. There are 4 categories of disability, 4 broad categories used in the NCCD: physical, cognitive, sensory, social, and emotional, as well as guidelines to help the teacher determine which level of adjustment the student is currently needing. You can also see some examples for each type of adjustment here. For example, providing students with structured curriculum content at a different year level to their same age peers is classified as a substantial adjustment. In actioning the universal design for learning, our teachers design curricular materials guided by the UDL for the broadest range of students' needs. As you can see, at the beginning of the lesson, the UDL model seeks to hook all students' interests at the beginning and caters to diverse learning needs by varying traditional methods of representation, action, expression as the lesson unfolds. We also highly value use of inclusive language in our school as a way to create safe environment that is conducive to learning for all students. The guidelines for inclusive language provide examples in areas where discrimination and exclusion might arise, such as gender, sexual orientation, race, and ethnicity. Use of inclusive technology is also part of our inclusive practice to facilitate students with disability and cater to students' various learning needs. Strong partnership with family is also essential when students' special needs are concerned. Our school is guided by the family partnership model, which enables parents, families, and other helpers to overcome their challenges, build strength, resilience, and enable their goals to be achieved effectively and ultimately achieve better outcomes for our children. Lastly, we value teaching that is responsive to the various characters and needs of students and take a whole child approach. The whole child approach ties into inclusive education in that it overcomes teachers' assumptions about the child based on one single aspect, such as their academic performance or their ethnic background. An example of responsive teaching at our school is the integration of Aboriginal content. We employed Dr. Ernie Grant's Indigenous framework in learning, where teachers identify links between topic and the Indigenous way of learning to support learning of Indigenous students. The second half of our presentation will be focused on gifted and talented students. Gifted students are not a homogeneous group. They show significant variation in their profiles of strengths and needs across learning, social, and emotional domains. Research shows that without intervention, gifted students are at high risk of underachieving, disengaging from learning, and or developing emotional and behavioral problems. Therefore, gifted students need to be identified and provided with learning programs that support them to achieve their full potential. Renzoni's three-ring conception defined giftedness as an interaction among three interlocking clusters of human traits, being above average general ability, task commitment, and creativity. Each cluster is essential to giftedness, and a major error that continues to be made in identifying gifted children is the overemphasis on superior abilities at the expense of the other two clusters of traits. Gagne's differentiating model of giftedness and talent is very useful in identifying and providing individualized support to gifted and talented students. A student's gift on the left column of this model are turned into talents on the right column through the development process, which consists of 6 main elements. Having this model in mind will enable teachers to identify catalysts that are hindering or supporting students' talent development and prevent them from oversimplifying students' performance. Differentiation of gifted children tends to be on the basis of their difference in intellectual abilities, talents, therefore lose sight of other important aspects that identify the gifted child. Neha and Beth's framework focuses on a holistic perspective of the gifted child and takes into consideration the interaction of emotion, social, cognitive, and physical factors that can help the teacher identify gifted children more effectively. All the models we've talked about are subject to the teacher's judgment, which can also comes in forms of anecdotal records of students themselves, peer, other teachers, administrators, or parents. Objective identification instrument teachers can utilize to identify the gifted student include psychologist reports and standardized cognitive assessments, etc. Kaplan's model of curriculum differentiation focuses on a central theme, as gifted students have the ability to learn holistically and make connections between ideas. This model offers differentiation in 4 domains of the curriculum: content, process, product, and affective. Here is an example of using Kaplan's model on the topic of change in Aboriginal and culture and history. This model identifies the hierarchical structure of skills manifested in the process domain to assist the teacher in designing activities that scaffolds the specific knowledge and skills of gifted and talented students. Maker's model is a practical framework for developing optional materials to be incorporated into a program for gifted students using abstraction as a content modification strategy. While exploring the topic of beach, students can examine material about different types of beaches and come up with their definition of a beach and the kinds of beaches in their discovery. Williams' model of curriculum development identifies 3 domains of differentiation: school curriculum, strategies to develop thinking and creativity, and processes that are involved in creative thinking. This model aims to provide stimulation and opportunities for thinking and creativity for students. For example, while exploring the topic, the Anzac legend, teacher can use paradox as a strategy to engage and stimulate thinking about reasoning for both sides of the statement, national identity comes from glorious defeat. Teachers can also refer to theory of multiple intelligence by Gartner that provide 8 different potential pathways in which materials can be presented to facilitate effective learning of the gifted student. And in designing assessment tasks, teachers can also look at the higher levels of skills in the Bloom's taxonomy to cater to the outstanding intellectual ability of the gifted student. Other strategies that can help with the development of gifted and talented students include, but not limited to, the following: online learning modules and project-based learning, tiered assessments, acceleration, early entry to school, flexible grouping, individual learning plans, extended learning, and differentiation. Some of them we already covered in the previous slides. I would like to end the presentation talking about supporting twice exceptional students. Teachers can use a Maker model or a Kaplan model in differentiating the curriculum, product type, or content focus to the twice exceptional students' interests and strengths, and also by referring to the UDL for the types of representation of understanding. And teacher can allow the students to demonstrate their knowledge and ideas in different ways. That is the end of the presentation. Thank you, and I hope you find this presentation useful in improving inclusive practice in your classroom.